The flame caught. I lunged forward, shoving the burning rag against the creature's chest. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then fire roared to life, racing across its body in a violent wave. It shrieked, thrashing inside the cab, its skull colliding with glass, its limbs striking steel with the force of a sledgehammer. I dove to the side as it flailed, the floor trembling, glass cracking. The fire consumed it faster now, devouring every scrap of skin, clinging to bone like molten tar. It howled one last time, a sound that made the cab vibrate and my vision blur. And then, with a violent twist, it lost its grip and fell backward through the hatch, vanishing into the smoke below. The cab went silent. Only the sound of my own heartbeat thundered in my ears. I didn't move for a long time. The hatch still yawned open, smoke curling into the cab, but I just sat there, pressed against the wall, waiting for another sound. Nothing came. No claws on steel, no hiss, just the distant pops of tires exploding in the fire below. Eventually, I forced myself to the window. Dawn was bleeding into the sky, pale gray against the column of black smoke rising from camp. For a moment, I thought I saw it move, some twisted shape in the wreckage, but it was only the flames collapsing into themselves. Sirens came faint at first, then closer, slicing through the morning stillness. Flashing lights broke through the tree line. Fire crews, paramedics. Figures in heavy jackets ran through camp, radios buzzing. I beat on the glass until one of them looked up. By the time I reached the ground, my legs gave out. They caught me, voices overlapping, questions I couldn't answer. Oxygen, blankets, hands gripping my shoulders to keep me steady. But my eyes stayed fixed on the base of the crane. It was there, a blackened body curled among steel and ash, the antlers shattered, one limb gone entirely, flesh melted to bone. For the first time, it looked dead, truly dead. A firefighter crouched beside me, blocking the view. "You're lucky to be alive," he said softly. I shook my head, my voice cracked. Not luck, just fire. He didn't understand, he didn't have to. They wheeled me toward the ambulance, and I reached into my jacket pocket. My fingers brushed the edge of Ellie's sticky note, creased, smudged, but still legible. "Don't get eaten, Dad." I closed my eyes, clinging to it, because deep down, even as the sirens wailed and the smoke drifted skyward, I couldn't shake the thought, what if it wasn't the only one? That was the night I stopped laughing at ghost stories. The Wendigo is supposed to be a legend, a cautionary tale whispered by campfires. But I saw it. I smelled its rot, felt the steel shake beneath its claws, watched fire crawl across its bones. And I know now, some legends don't die in the telling, they wait. I survived that night, barely. They'll write it up as an accident. Faulty wiring, a blaze that tore through camp, men lost in the chaos. No one will mention what really climbed my tower. No one will believe me if I try. But I can't forget. Every time the wind groans against steel, every time the night grows colder than it should, I remember those sockets staring back at me. So, if you ever find yourself in the woods and the air suddenly turns sharp, too cold for the season, listen carefully, because something might already be climbing.
No consequences, no closure. Just a rumor of a transfer and a memory we all tried to bury. But now, with Greg's twisted body fresh in the ground, that memory was clawing its way back. Inciting incident. We promised ourselves we wouldn't talk about Danny again. It sounded ridiculous, dragging a childhood mistake into a murder investigation. We were adults now, and what we'd done had been years ago. Kids being cruel, we told ourselves, nothing more. But silence never lasts. The next evening, I sat with Raph at his apartment. The television murmured in the background, some game we weren't watching, while the weight of Greg's death pressed down on both of us. Neither of us dared say the name, but it hung between us anyway. Then, Raph's phone rang. His mother. He put it on speaker. Her voice cracked halfway through his name. "Something happened at Lex's apartment complex. Someone's dead. It's bad. Haven't you seen the news?" She couldn't finish. We were on our feet before she hung up. The drive was a blur of red lights and knuckles white against the steering wheel. By the time we reached the complex, the entire place was cordoned off with police tape, flashing lights turning everything into fractured color and shadow. Reporters were already there, shoving microphones toward officers who refused to comment. But one word cut through the noise. A reporter mentioned a name. Lex. The world went cold. 2 of us gone, 2 bodies mutilated, and the same silence from the police. At the station, Jaime was already waiting. Her arms crossed, foot tapping. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "This isn't a coincidence," she hissed. Her voice dropped lower. "It's him, Danny." The 3 of us finally broke. We told Detective Harland everything. The locker, the bullying, the disappearance. His face stayed calm, but his eyes sharpened. He admitted the same name had been found at both crime scenes. Danny, written somewhere only the killer could have left it. That's when I realized something inescapable. This wasn't just about Greg. This wasn't just about Lex. We were being hunted. And the past we thought we'd buried wasn't finished with us. Rising action. Detective Harlan didn't waste time once we told him about Danny. He leaned back, rubbed his jaw, and said, "We'll pull records. If he's alive, we'll find him." His voice was steady, but I could see the unease creeping into his expression. That night, sleep became impossible. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying memories I hadn't thought about in over a decade. Danny's voice, cracking as he begged us not to shut the locker door. His fists pounding from the inside, the echo of metal slamming shut. I told myself it had been a mistake, a prank gone too far. But the guilt that spread through my chest now felt like poison. The next day, Jaime sent a message in the group chat. She had gone digging through public records. "I found something," she wrote. Later, in person, her voice shook as she explained. Danny's parents had been found dead less than a week after he disappeared. Both bodies mangled beyond recognition, their insides torn apart. No suspects? No answers. Danny was relocated to a state facility under a sealed court order, and then nothing. He vanished. Raph cursed under his breath, pacing the room. So what? He got out and decided to wait 15 years to snap? His voice cracked, a desperate attempt at rationality. But even he didn't believe it. We tried to carry on, but the dread never left. Patrol cars circled our neighborhoods. Detectives promised protection, but it felt useless. And then Jaime vanished. She had agreed to protective custody, locked away in a maximum security prison unit. We thought she was safe, Safer than us. But one morning, Harlan called us directly. His voice shook. She was found dead in her cell. The surveillance cameras had gone black for 15 minutes. 3 guards were unconscious outside her unit. The word Danny scrawled in blood on the wall. That's when Harlan stopped being a detective and started speaking like a friend. He came to us in person, eyes sunken. If I were you boys, I'd pack your things and run. Whatever this is, it's not something the system can handle. So we did. Raph and I stayed together, barricading ourselves in my house, taking turns napping on the couch with a gun nearby. Every creak in the floorboards felt like a warning. Every gust of wind sounded like whispers through the cracks. We tried to pretend life could carry on, ordering groceries, turning on the TV, but all it did was highlight the silence that waited in the spaces in between.
One night, I woke to the sound of pounding, 3 dull thuds from the other side of the house. My stomach dropped. I whispered Raph's name. No answer. Gun in hand, I moved down the hall. The air smelled sour, rancid, as if something had crawled inside the walls to rot. I reached the guest room and froze. Inside, something wet dragged across the floor. I turned the knob. The smell hit first, rot and bile. The curtains blocked most of the light, but enough spilled in to show the bed. Raph's body lay twisted on top of it, bent in half, his jaw dangling open. Blood painted the walls. And crouched over him was the thing. Its skin was stretched gray, clinging to bones like paper over wire. Sores oozed yellow fluid down its back, dripping in sticky strings to the floor. Its arms hung too long, fingers scraping the wood, each tipped with claws like sharpened bone. Its head rose when I stepped inside. Its chest heaved with wet, rattling breaths. I emptied the gun into its torso. Each shot landed. None mattered. It stepped forward, unfazed. I bolted, sprinting down the hallway as the door exploded behind me. The creature's feet slapped against the floor, impossibly fast. I locked myself in the bedroom, shoved furniture against the door, hands trembling. I dialed 911, but before the operator answered, the window shattered. Hands grabbed me, human hands. A voice barked in my ear, "Move!" I hit the ground outside, shoulder slamming into dirt. The man dragged me up, shoving me toward a car waiting 2 houses down. We sped off, tires shrieking against the asphalt. Only when we reached the outskirts did I look at him. His face was worn, beard patchy, eyes dark and hollow. He stared at me like he'd known me all my life. "It's me," he said. "Danny." The words lodged in my throat. This man couldn't be the same kid we'd stuffed in a locker, but his eyes didn't lie. "I forgave you," he said, "a long time ago." He told me about the nights he prayed, for anything that would listen, for revenge against everyone who hurt him. And something had answered. A thing that killed his parents, that hunted every name he whispered in anger, one by one. He'd spent years trying to outrun it, to kill it, to weaken it. Nothing worked. "It reacts to pain," he muttered, pulling a single shimmering bullet from his pocket. "I've heard it before. It can die, but it needs bait, and you're the last name left." The house Danny chose was collapsing in on itself, its porch leaning toward the dirt, windows boarded, walls scribbled with symbols I didn't understand. Inside, diagrams and notes covered every surface, names scrawled in jagged handwriting, pages pinned like talismans against the rot. A single mattress lay in the corner, soaked dark from years of sweat.
The air stank of iron and mildew. Danny retrieved the weapon from a chest in the back, a hunting rifle, modified with wires around the barrel and etchings carved into the stock. He held it like a relic, reverent and heavy. "You stay in the center," he said. "It'll come for you. I'll take the shot." We waited. Hours dragged on, the silence so thick that even the creak of the floor made my stomach lurch. The wind outside died. The air inside turned colder. Then, without warning, the door exploded inward. It stepped through. The creature's chest heaved, sores leaking black and yellow fluid, its long fingers curling against the wood. Its head tilted toward me. The air vibrated with the sound of its wet, rattling breath. "Now!" Denny barked. The rifle cracked, a single round slamming into its chest. It screamed, a shriek that sliced through my skull, rattling my teeth. Smoke rose from the wound, its flesh blistering. For the first time, it recoiled. Danny reloaded, hands moving fast. I dove behind a table as the creature lunged, claws tearing into the floor where I had stood seconds earlier. Splinters erupted, the smell of rot flooding the room. I swung a fire poker, slamming it into its skull. Black ichor sprayed across my hands, burning like acid. Danny fired again, this time into its spine. The creature twisted, shrieking louder, its body folding in on itself like collapsing ice. But it didn't fall. It turned toward Danny, lunging with a guttural roar. I rammed the poker into its jaw, forcing its head back, just as Danny raised the rifle a third time. The final round thundered into its throat.
The scream that followed was worse than anything before. Its body froze mid-lunge, trembling violently, then collapsed inward, limbs twisted, torso folding, ash pouring from its wounds. With one last rattling moan, it imploded into dust. Silence. I staggered to my feet, coughing through the smoke, vision blurred by tears and ash. The room felt hollow, emptied of air. Danny dropped the rifle, leaning against the wall, blood soaking through his shirt. His chest rose in jagged breaths. He looked at me, eyes glassy. "We did it," he whispered. Danny slid down the wall, his knees buckling, one hand pressed hard against his ribs. Blood seeped between his fingers, dripping onto the floorboards. I knelt beside him, reaching for the wound, but he shook his head. "There's no proof," he said, voice trembling. "No body, no evidence. They'll never believe what happened here." I swallowed, throat raw. He pressed a revolver into my hand. "You shoot me, not to kill, just enough. Tell them I snapped, that I killed our friends and came for you, that you barely survived. They'll believe that." I froze, staring at the gun. His eyes didn't waver, and in that instant, the memory crashed back. The sound of a locker door slamming shut, fists pounding from the inside, Danny's voice screaming until he broke. My hands had been on the door then. My hands were on the trigger now. "Do it," he whispered. My fingers squeezed. The shot rang out. Danny groaned, slumping sideways, clutching his side. He forced a thin smile. "Now, call them. Tell them it's over."
When the sirens arrived 20 minutes later, I was waiting outside, hands raised, blood on my shirt. The story spread quickly. A man broken by years of bullying, returning for revenge. A spree rooted in trauma and delusion. The world swallowed it whole. Weeks later, I learned Danny had died in custody, wounds from my bullet. I had killed him twice, once in a locker and once with a gun, and I don't know which one I regret more. The funerals are over now. The news has moved on. To the world, it's a closed case. Just another tragedy with a simple explanation they can sleep with. But I know better. I still see it when I close my eyes, the way its body collapsed into ash, the way its scream rattled my bones. Sometimes, in the dead of night, I wake to the faint sound of fists pounding against metal, a memory or a reminder. I can't tell anymore. Danny once said the thing answered his prayers, that every name he cursed was hunted down. He believed it was over, that by dying he'd sealed the story shut. But I've started to wonder, because when the house is quiet, I swear I hear my own name whispered back to me from the dark. And maybe the locker was never really opened. Maybe I've been trapped inside with him all along.